How well do you remember viewing the world through a child's eyes? You were once a child, and yet how easy do you really think it is? Hi there, welcome to Pen to Paper. I'm Leah Lindman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence Series. Today I want to dive deep back into your childhood. Okay, so we are not doing a therapy session here, but I want you to try to remember how you viewed the world as a child. Did the sounds and sights seem brighter and bigger? Did you tend to exaggerate what was going on around you? We are going to tackle the issue of writing from a child's perspective, a child's POV in your work, whatever work it may be. It is much harder to write in a child's voice when you are no longer a child, you're an adult. So I'm going to tackle the 4 or 5 points that you really should remember when writing from a child's perspective, because as writers, we want to make sure that the voices we bring through our work and the writing itself is as accurate as it can be in what we know and how we can bring things to be. So the first point I want to make is, if you are writing from a child's perspective, the best thing you can do to help yourself is to actually be around children whose age your child's character is. So, for example, in the book that I'm writing right now, which is the sequel novella to my latest release, Unborn Melody, this novella is titled His Girl, and my child's character is 5 years old. There is another child character 2 years old, but I'm heavily focusing on the 5-year-old. Now, I kind of have a little bit of an advantage here in that I have a 5-year-old daughter right now. No, I did not pick 5 years old because my daughter is 5 years old. It just so happened that I write historical fiction. So the year and how many years after the first one, so the first book is set in 1943, second book is set in 1948. It just happened to coincide that my character's age is 5 years old. But it also coincides that I have a 5-year-old to watch, to see how she interacts with her siblings, how she experiences the world, how she makes sense of the world around her, how she speaks, her mannerisms. It's all there on a full display for me to see. If you have a child whose age you are trying to write, the best thing you can do is to spend time with your child and understand how they interact with their world through their actions, their words, and everything around them. Now, if you're not a mom, you don't have children, maybe you have nieces or nephews or grandkids or I don't know, just people, maybe friends in your life who have younger kids, or the kid you're trying to write about. Could be a teen, could be 7, could be 15, whatever age. Try to put yourself in situations. Now, don't be creepy about it. You're not going to go to the park and stalk kids, okay? Not advocating for that. But put yourself in, for people who are in your life and they have kids, you're going to want to put yourself in situations when you're around those kids, and you're going to want to observe them. And then you can utilize what you see in your writing. If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of family, just cannot think of a way that you can be around those ages, you are a little bit at a disadvantage here. But it is not all for naught. You can attempt and focus on remembering how you acted when you were 5, when you were 7, 10, 12, whatever age you are picking for your child's character. but you have to do it in a way that you strip all of your mature reasoning and all of your experiences up until that point. So you cannot think of the world the way you did past, let's say I'm writing a 5-year-old past a 5-year-old. I need to strip that all away and remember and focus on what it was like to be a 5-year-old. How did I describe things? How did I speak? How did I interact with the people around me? So it is a little bit more challenging, maybe quite a bit more challenging, but if you want to write an authentic child's voice, then that's what you need to do. Hey there, just a little reminder to give this video a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button for more weekly content on pen to paper. Second thing that you want to remember when writing in a child's voice is that because their mature reasoning is much more limited than when they are an adult, you need to understand that the 5 senses, taste, smell, see, hear, and I'm forgetting one of them. Okay, let me see. It's like basic science here. Okay, taste, smell, feel, sound, and see, okay? That those senses are heavily described when you are describing how the child feels in situations, or what do they see around them, and the smells. You need to amplify those, because when you're younger, especially in the younger ages when mature reasoning isn't there as much, it all needs to make sense, and their senses help them to make sense of the world around them. So it's actually a really good activity for you to utilize your 5 senses, right? We do writing exercises like these where we say use 4 of the 5 senses or all 5 senses to describe something. You're going to want to use this heavily in writing when in a child's perspective. Number 3, understand that children see way more and understand way more than we actually think they do. Sometimes we feel or think as adults that things just go over their heads and they don't understand what's going on, but really they do. They have this amazing intuitive sense that, oh, someone is sad because they made a face like this, or how else? I know for me with my kids, if I'm slipping out the door and I forget to give them a hug or a kiss, because I have 7 kids, so sometimes I don't get to all of them, or I thought I hugged and kissed all of them, but then I didn't. The one that's missing the hug and kiss, they will stop what they're doing. They will chase me down and make sure they give me that hug and kiss before I go. They just know. It's really incredible that they don't miss these intuitive physical body cues. Amazing. So make sure that they just know. I'm already utilizing this in the book that I'm writing. There's a man that my main character, Melody, doesn't know, comes to the door, but her mom opens the door. She doesn't see who the man is. She doesn't know who the man is, but the mom opens the door, closes it, has this look on her face that she's never really seen her mom wear before. They're in an isolated community in the Northwest Territories. The only people that she's only ever been around is her aunt and her uncle and the native indigenous tribe there that her father calls family. And that's only who she's ever interacted with. And suddenly this person comes to the door and disrupts everything in their lives. And she knows something's going on, even though her parents don't say much about it. So that's one way to utilize the understanding of a child, that even though we think, oh, they don't understand what's going on, they know that there's a disruption. They understand that very clearly. Number 4 is that even though they understand, they actually don't understand. So they don't have that mature reasoning to see that they don't understand why the disruption is happening. They understand it is happening. They just don't understand why it's happening. And because when they don't understand all the little facets of details around them about a situation, they tend to amplify the situation. Their emotions are amplified. The whole situation is exaggerated because they're trying to grasp and understand how their world is changing and what they need to do in order to change with it, or to stop that change from happening because it's uncomfortable. In the book that I'm writing, so she understands that her parents are being secretive about this new man that has come to the door, and she asks her father why, and he doesn't quite give a full answer that she's looking for. And so when she hears someone say this man's name, she leaves and she goes to try to find this man. She's trying to make sense of the world around her. So when she comes across him, she says, "My mom and dad say you have bad news." But she's looking at him and he's a very kind person from what she can tell. And she says, "Do you have bad news?" Like, everything's exaggerated. She's trying to figure out what this bad news is. And then he says, "Well, for some people, bad news is good news for other people." So it just kind of throws more of a wrench into her world. She really doesn't understand what's going on. But she exaggerates by taking charge, leaving where she's not supposed to leave, and taking charge to find out the secret, what is going on in her world, right? And kids' emotions tend to get very amplified when they're scared or they're mad because, again, they're trying to make sense. So make sure that those emotions and those situations, although they may seem simple, they're not simple in a child's eyes. They're very amplified. They don't know what's going on, so they're trying to make sense. And did I have a last impression? Not really. Those are my tips for writing in a child's perspective. It can be difficult, and you want to make sure that, oh, actually I do have one more tip. I almost forgot. When you're writing in a child's voice, make sure that you use descriptions or words that a child would use. So for example, if you are trying to explain a color, maybe the color, let's say the color purple, but it's more of a violet tone. Obviously, you're not going to use the word violet because a child wouldn't use the word violet. They would use a term that they would understand, maybe an item that has the same color as the color you're trying to explain. So for purple, it could be that purple flower that they saw in the garden, like an iris or a foxglove, if flowers have any part in the child's vocabulary or world. If flowers don't play a part, then obviously don't use a flower. But you want to use metaphors and similes to help bring home a point that the child's trying to make, but in a way that a child would do it. So not in a way that you would do it. You wouldn't use the word violet or burgundy. You would use those words, but not a child. And that's my final point about writing about, or I should say, in a child's perspective. So it is a challenge, but if this is what you're going for, hopefully these tips will help you out. Tell me in the comments, have you written in a child's perspective? Maybe there's a points that I missed. And if you have any other tips as a writer, please share them down below. What do you think would be the most difficult for you to employ when writing in a child's voice, and what tips would be helpful to you? So have a great week. I will see you next week with more writer's tips.